All right, let's do this. So the question always is, what is the question? I know that you must be wondering why I keep adjusting this damn mic. So I took some time off. I took some time off to honor the space that I needed to go through the process of grief. I knew I was going to need space without pressure of, posting every day and inviting people into my energy, into my space, and, that old business stuff, right? I knew I was going to need that without the pressure, just pressure-free space to go through the grief process, because it really is a process, and it's something that's, in my experience, rather involuntary. Now, I realize saying that there are some people who are stronger than me or more capable than me of being able to suppress certain parts of the process of grief for whatever reason. I find that doesn't work for me, and I'm not entirely sure that that works for the people who suppress that, who are able to do that. I don't know. If you're one of those people and it's been a successful journey for you, please let me know how you do that. You could probably start a class on that. Because honestly, I don't know how people go through this process and continue with life as normal at the same time. I have done that. When James passed, I feel like I didn't allow myself to have the sort of support when he passed as I welcomed and encouraged this time with my father's passing. So those are two different types of grieving processes that I can speak to personally. Because with James, the grieving process was so extensive. It took such a long time. It was incredibly painful. I was devastated for months afterwards. And there are still moments, even now. Honestly, I don't know if there's a time when grief actually ends, when there isn't a moment, when there is a time when the moments of feeling of missing the person, like the existence of this person, the physical existence of the person that you knew, who is now completely gone. And this is a different sort of grief than when you lose a relationship, because they still exist in the world. The sort of grief that you experience when someone dies, there's a frustration that is involved, in my experience. I'm speaking, this whole thing is just from my experience. There's a frustration involved that kind of underlies that, because you can never reach out to that person again. It's not a willful thing. Like, when someone is still alive and you miss that relationship, you willfully have decided to not have that person in your life. But at any time, you can change your mind and welcome that person back into your life. Whereas with death, that option is gone, because that person is gone. And to be honest, it's given me a better understanding of birth and death, because these are major transitions. These are major points In a lifespan, you have the beginning, the birth, and you have the end, the death. And it's like, as a woman who has birthed 3 human beings into the world, and I think especially if you have had a natural birth, there's a sense that what you are doing, in part, is you are literally ripping apart the universe in order to make room for this tiny being to come through and to come into existence and to become alive. Like, that's fucking magic. And that when the death happens, it's like this person is now being ripped out of the universe, out of existence. And now the rest of the universe is kind of settling into place, and that place where they existed, where they lived, who they were, is gone. Gone. Now, of course, they aren't gone, right? They aren't gone. There's a part of you that lives forever. I'm just saying that there's also this. These two things can't exist at the same time, to where they are not gone, but that they are. Completely opposites, still true. So with James, my experience was very painful, and I was very surprised by this, to be honest. I was not expecting any of it. The emotions, there's so much about the grief that I experienced with James that just I can't put words to. There were emotions that I experienced that I never had, like nobody's ever put words to. There were times when I experienced 2 emotions that in my mental mind, I was like, these are 2 completely opposite emotions. Why? I shouldn't even be able to carry these emotions at the same time, because they should cancel each other. I can experience one or I can experience the other. I shouldn't be able to experience both at the same time. But this body somehow was able to do that. And it's really amazing when you think about the shit that your body experiences, holds during this whole process. Because really, if it was any other sort of vessel, it would explode or implode or just somehow self-destruct, because it's hard. It is hard. Like, I don't blame you for not wanting to go through this. And it's like every single part of you, physical, spiritual, and whatever the hell else levels there are of you, has to work together in order to experience this process. It's a process. It's a process. And when I went through it with my husband, I did it, for the most part, alone. Whether I should have or shouldn't have, that's what happened. I did not have the support. I didn't even know that was a thing that you could have. And it's funny because even now, my mom's like, you never really grieved. You never really grieved. And I guess it's because I didn't show it to the world. I hid away. I mean, my children knew because they were here with me. I think they had a small idea of what I was going through. But for the most part, I didn't allow myself to do it unless it was, right time, right place. And that is fucking hard. And I realized that some people have to do it that way because they have work, because they have responsibilities outside of themselves that they have to tend to. I mean, we all do. This time it was different. And I feel like this time I really was able to just kind of roll with it. Now, I'm not saying that it was, you know what, I am going to say that it was a lot easier this time around. And I don't know if that's because of the nature of the relationship, because these are two very important men in my life. But the relationship that I had with my husband is very different than a relationship I had with my father. They're just two different relationships. And so maybe that kind of colored my experience. You know, because after my father died, the moment that I realized he had passed, no, the moment that I realized that he had stopped breathing, and it was like a miracle. It was like a wonder. Oh my God, like he was breathing a moment ago and now he's not. And it was a curiosity more than anything else, a fascination. And then I think a little bit of shock, because it still felt sudden, even though I had been walking him up to this moment for months, expecting it. Like, we'd both been expecting it. We knew what was going on. We knew what was happening. And we were both kind of like scientists, like, oh, what's going on now? How is your body changing now? And like, watching the deterioration, watching the body shut down. And we would talk about it like that, like the body as being the separate thing. He was consciously aware. I was consciously aware of the process that was happening. His body was shutting. He was dying. And so there was the shock. And then a couple days later, right, because he died on a Monday, because I remember going through the process of like, finding someone. I mean, there was so much that I hadn't had time to do in terms of like preparing for the eventuality. So much that I didn't know about how to do that, because I didn't have to go through that with James. He ran away to his sister, so she took care of all of that. All I had to do was wait. This time, I was much more involved in the process of dying, of carrying this man to the threshold and helping him along with that process. And so a couple of days later, after the shock wore off, there was a moment when it hit me, like a moment where I consciously was like, oh shit, here it is. Oh shit, here it comes, kind of like, if you're a woman and you're giving birth and when the contractions are coming, you can tell when it's coming, and you start bracing yourself and you start breathing and you're doing all these things. And that's what happened with this. The process of the heavy grieving was beginning. And I had already, I think at that point, reached out to people and welcomed people to help me through the process. People had offered to bring food. And to those of you that did, if you hear this, thank you. Thank you. I cannot tell you how grateful I am for that. Those of you who sat with me and hugged me and were in person with me, in aura with me, thank you. I cannot tell you how helpful that was. You guys carried me. You guys carried me. I don't know that my children would have eaten if it wasn't for all the food that people brought. I didn't have it in me to fucking cook for my children, to go grocery shopping. I didn't. I was exhausted, because that's the other thing that happened, is the exhaustion hit me. And thought at the time that it was the exhaustion of caring for this man physically and spiritually and emotionally and all of that. I was literally picking him up and rolling him over and like taking him places. Physically, he could not do that on his own. So I was doing all the things that his body couldn't do. And I was physically exhausted. I was emotionally exhausted. I was exhausted in ways that I don't know how to put a name to. I don't have a lot of words for everything, and that's very disconcerting for me, just so you know. I like to have words for things so that I can communicate it some kind of way. So I'm dealing with the exhaustion. I'm dealing with the grief. I hit the fucking floor, guys. I hit the floor. And I allowed myself to be carried by people, and it was uncomfortable, but it was necessary. I could feel that it was necessary. I needed that help. Thank you. So much gratitude. And I just I basically would sit in the living room, in the fucking living room on that recliner, and I watched Stargate. I didn't have Star Trek. My dad was a huge Trekkie, but I wanted something to just kind of sci-fi, to just kind of connect me to him. And it was Stargate. And when I could, I would go into his room and go through his things because I had to empty it out. And I remember one week I was like, all right, that's it. I'm done. I've been grieving enough. I need to get back to life. And that shit did not work. I was cranky. It was one day. It was a Monday. I was cranky. I was snappy. Yeah, I was exhausted at the end of the day. And it was like, I knew that I had to go back into my cocoon. It was just not time. So I went back. And I'm so grateful that I have the space to be able to go through that process. There's a lot of things that went by the wayside. I fell behind in a lot of things, and I just fucking allowed it, and I'll catch up later. I think I'm going to miss this man for the rest of my life. He was so just immense and important to me. He understood the dark, secret parts of me intuitively. And I think it's because it's a thing that we both shared. I don't know. Grief is no joke, you guys. It is no fucking joke. I took the time to watch my energy, and I knew that, walking up to Tim's death, my dad's death, I was starting to realize how sensitive I am to other people's energies. And I cannot have everybody, just anybody in my space. I have to be very discerning because I don't have the energy for it otherwise. I don't have the energy for everybody. Only certain people. And so even now, I'm very discerning about who I let in my energy, who I let in my space. There's a lightness and a brightness to this house now because it's just me and the children. Tim's gone, Michael's gone, my roommate, he's gone. He didn't die, he just moved out. And it's like, there's so much space energetically in this house now. And it feels so good, and it's so light, not only just like brightness, but just like the heaviness is gone. The clouds have moved away, and rainbows and sunshine. And it's healing. It's cleansing. Yes, it is cleansing. Somehow that feels better, that word. It's cleansing. And I'm grateful for all of it because now, I've learned so much from these two men passing in my life. And I'm in a different place now. And it's so general, such a general fucking term. Doesn't even touch. It's like I've shifted into school. I've shifted into an energy that feels more at home. It feels more aligned. It feels more at home. Aligned doesn't quite cut it, but you know that there's a home feeling, like when you go home and you feel comfortable and you have built this home that you feel comfortable in, you can explore all your parts, and there's a home feeling, safety, security, as much as one can be secure. And I carry that inside of me now. It's not attached to this building. It's not attached to any particular space. It's something that I am living in. That's something I just realized just in this moment. And it makes me think, because I've been waiting for the invitation to move out of this house that I'm in now into my home, because I haven't felt like home since I left my childhood home. And this whole time I've been waiting to go home, and I think I'm ready, to move into my home so I can start. To move into my home. And I just keep thinking that. Move into my home so I can start the work. Move into my home so that. I think that might be just my mind talking. Move into my home. So yes, grief for my father, with my father, it's still something that I watch. I feel like I'm going to be constantly watching and learning, and life is just going to keep teaching me and bringing me things for the rest of my life. I'm always going to be a little bit unstable. And I think I'm going to be okay with that, because it's going to be such a gift. Such a beautiful gift. These men have given me the world. They have given me everything. And there is no limit to what I can achieve. I am free. These men have freed me. And the only thing that is ever going to imprison me is me. They have given me that. They have returned that to me. I never lost it. It's always been here. But through this experience of their death, and I think this is a thing that many people experience, is there's something that happens when a person dies, and it affects people differently. But there's something more than just a death. It's like death creates I don't know, in my mind, for some reason I'm thinking of this game Terraria that my son plays, and every time something dies, it leaves behind little coins of, money, bronze, gold, whatever, that you can go and collect. And that's what I think death does. When people die, they leave behind coins, little bits of value. It's not actual money. Of course not. I like to think of it as value, but I'm not sure it's valuable for everyone. It could be something that kind of tears you apart, and maybe you don't know the value until later, the true value. I don't really know how other people experience it, but they leave behind something. And we get that, whatever that is. Silver lining. Anyway, thank you. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. And I would love to hear your experience of grief. If you have one. If you don't, oh. And if you do, I love you. And I will talk to you later.